next year. So I'll just share my screen here. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this is an annual report that we at Aqua make for every year for you guys, for the lagoons and the lift stations. It's mandatory under the ECA, and it's usually out by March of the year in the year. So the introduction is it has to be done by the operating authority for Noelleville under the ECA, and this is a summary of all the things we have to include in the ECA for this report. So the description of the facility is the capacity of 477 cubic meters a day of sewage flow for the service area of Noelleville, 193 connections, and 800 population on the system. The effluent receiver is the Wolf River, and major process is facultative lagoons, 2 cells, and it's a class 1 wastewater treatment, sorry. So every year we have a seasonal discharge in the spring and the fall. Last year in 2020, the spring discharge was April 27th to May 13th with a volume of 40,516 meters cubed. And in the spring release, the sampling parameters were exceeded on the TSS, which is the total suspended solids. So that's just stuff in the water that's suspended, sludge and stuff. And the autumn seasonal discharge on the north cell was on October 15th to, I can't really see it because I got, I think it was the 27th, with a 49,507 meters cubed, but did not exceed any parameters for the fall release. So that means we didn't have to treat it last fall with ferric. So that saved you guys some money. So the total effluent discharge for lagoons was 90,023 cubic meters for last year. And the total raw sewage flow into the lagoons for the year was 68,498. So this process data is, these are the samples we sample for on a monthly basis. BODs, which is our biochemical oxygen demand, total suspended solids, total phosphorus, and total nitrogen, and then our daily flows. So all these are our average numbers for the whole year. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know. I'll stop. And then when we're doing our releases, these are the samples we take 5 times during the seasonal discharge for CBODs, which is carbon biochemical oxygen demand, total suspended solids, total phosphorus, total ammonium nitrogen, and pH, acidity and base, and your temperature and your unionized ammonia and your flow, of course. But that's based on how fast we let it go out when we just measure the level and calculate it as the flow. So as these are the treated effluent discharge sampling results for the spring discharge and the fall discharge. And as you can see, our total suspended solids are quite high for the North Lagoon, or that's the South Lagoon, sorry. We're accrediting that to a little bit of algae growth in the lagoon, and you guys receive a lot of septage haulage, so it's creeping that number up quite a bit. And then the fall discharge was pretty good on the north cell. So then these are the flow volumes for every month for the whole year of 2020. I send a report to Mark usually every month with all these numbers and flows. And then this is just the whole add up of the whole year. And then we just got a little chart of all the peak flows for all of the whole year. So if you look back in your average daily flows, you'll see March, April, they're always a little bit higher because of snow melt. October, November, a little bit higher because of rainfall and stuff like that. And then in your summer months, you'll get a little bit less flow. So these are all the calculated flows for the month or for the year on how much capacity we've used. This is supposed to say 2020. Sorry, it's a typo. So these are all your total flows for 2017 to 2020. So you see some years you might have more rain, you might have more snow, and that's how where you get these higher numbers in here. So the average daily sewage flow is about 187 cubic meters a day at about 39% of the rated capacity. And the highest peak flow occurred in March at 739 cubic meters a day. And that could attribute to, could have been snow melt and a rainfall at the same time. So you get a lot of infiltration into the ground. So you guys have set the objective of 350 cubic meters a day as an average annual maximum. So we try hopefully to stay under that, but if it goes over a day here and a day there, it's not a big deal because it's averaged out through the month. So the spring seasonal discharge of the North Cell was completed April 27th and May 13th over a period of 17 days. And I think I've gone over this in the beginning. We covered how much volume it was, 40,516 cubic meters. And the fall was October 15th to October 29th for a period of 15 days and a total volume of 49,507 cubic meters, which end up a total of 90,023. So as we're sampling, we're always taking a pH sample to see if we're in compliance. If we go over on the pH as we're discharging, we have to stop the discharge. But for last year, we were close, but we didn't go over that. So we were right on the line. So when we start the lagoon release, we do a sample. So that was done probably this week for our fall release. And that will, once we get that back, that'll tell us if we have to treat it with ferric sulfate and then how much we'll have to treat it. So we'll just be waiting for those sample results back probably in the next week or so. And then that will dictate if we're going to treat the lagoon with ferric sulfate this year, or maybe we'll get lucky and not have to treat it at all. So this is where a little bit of a concern was our spring discharge with the 49.8 milligrams per liter on the total suspended solids. It's right on the borderline of where we want to be. And my staff complained of green coloring in the lagoon and believe algae is playing a role in with the high TSS value. So I'm looking into other options, trying to get a system to remove the algae. I'm doing a pilot project in another municipality that's working quite well. So it might be something we can talk about in another meeting if you like. So all our maintenance is monitored by our WMS, and all the work orders I'll show you in a minute. We're all listed for the whole year. We had one community complaint last year regards to a sewage smell at a residence. All the manholes and plumbing were inspected to ensure the sewage flow was going to the collection system, and dye testing was also completed. The source of the odor could not be determined, but I've gone through the community complaint. It's in this report. It was attributed to the person's house had a dry P-trap, a floor drain or something that just went dry, so the sewer smell was coming back up into the house. So in 2020, there was no sludge removed from lagoon. It's expected that no sludge will be removed during the next reporting period. Modifications did not occur at the facility that would have required notifications to the MECP. And throughout the year, the septage is hauled to lagoons. Total amounts were provided by the municipality, and the copy is attached to this report. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of the report. Most of this rest of the stuff is our discharge reports. So this is all our when we sampled for release, and it's these are the days we sampled and what we sampled for it and what the numbers were all the way through. So we have to do 5 samples during that release. So that's all our spring ones. And then a lot of these numbers, you got, I don't understand some of them, but the girls in the office do. But we just need to be aware of this this phosphorus one, or this total just suspended solids one. We have to start looking at this number right now in the South Lagoon, I believe.
Could you go back to that slide just for a second? I'm just trying to make a little bit of sense of it, because it looks like your South Range spreadsheet cells kind of went haywire there.
Yeah, it looks like they're off a bit when the girls made it up here. So it's probably got to be down a line for each one.
Okay. That's
so the south is this line, and the north would be this line.
Okay, thank you.
So no problem. Alrighty, where are we here? So these are just our compliance notes for based on how much ferric we used, or I believe. Oh yeah, okay. The amount of chemical we used for to treat the north cell in the fall. In the south, we did not have to release, or did not have to treat it. So right now we used in April, we used in 540 gallons of ferric sulfate to treat that one lagoon. And then the release for the fall is the same one with all the samples we took. If I'm going too fast, just tell me to slow down here. And as you can see, in the North Lagoon, the numbers are way better in that lagoon. So, and it could just be, I believe it's an algae problem, and it could be a sludge problem in the lagoon, because there is a lot of septage dump there. So then our south concentration for that CBOD over 5 samples. And then we did not have to treat that lagoon, so there's no chemical used in that. And what else we got here? So this is our exceedance form. So we've made a note of the TSS exceeding the limits of 25 milligrams per liter at 48 on the spring discharge season. And that's been recorded, contacting the MOE, so they know of it. So when that kind of stuff comes up, the MOE will start asking what are you doing to look at this problem. So now they know of it, so we have to start trying to figure out a solution to try and get the numbers down. And Appendix C. So these are all our plant maintenance. These are all our work orders. probably try and shrink it a little bit. These are all the work orders we have for all year. So they have a monthly health and safeties all year long. That the guys complete. It's just a checklist on our system of all the stuff. These next ones are the whiskey reviews. That's all the trending, and they have to check every 72 hours to make sure it's all good. So that's all right. This is the whiskey review they have to do in a month. They have to take a look at the whole month and make sure all the data is accurate. So that's a monthly work order for them. So there's quite a few sheets of stuff that, and then we have some maintenance stuff, issues that they had, some electrical inspections. So it's just a breakdown of the whole year in work orders. So there's quite a few of them. And then we got a thermal scan of all of the electrical system that we do on I'm not sure if it's an annual basis, but our electrician comes in, does a thermal scan of all the panels, just to make sure there's no loose wires or anything that are heating up. And then the guys have all the critical alarm testing, their monthly tests. So they physically make the station call out to the alarm company. So that's a monthly work order for them. And then your sewage smell complaint, there was a work order for that. These are all maintenance inspections. Then you got your treatment work order. This is probably a call out. Yeah, call out for a high level. Could have been a storm or something. Let's see. I got the window of all your faces there. I can't see that one side of my screen. And then these are diesel generator monthly runs, exhaust fan inspections. It's quite a few work orders for the guys. Not too bad, but if you do it on a monthly basis, flow meter calibrations. And here's our community complaint that we had for last year. Odor complaint from homeowner sink. They confirmed flow to the intersection, receiving manhole. The conclusion, there was smell likely coming from a P-trap that wasn't used enough. So advise homeowner to flush sink regularly. So we haven't had a complaint about it since. So I assume that is good now. And the final thing is all your septage volumes that the municipality provides to me for this report. So this is basically every load of septage that's gone into your lagoon over the course of 2020. So as you can see, it's a pretty hefty list of loads and it's got all the volumes and everything on the side here. Mm-hmm. And that's about your whole month or whole annual report. Any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's turn it over to the floor.
Yes, Randy.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, through you. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
I'm glad one statement you said there, and I was very happy to hear, is when you said that some of those numbers you didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, most of them and all of them, I probably don't understand.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Bob? The water wastewater acronyms. Some days I'm looking them up on Google. So.
Yeah. Could you tell me in a nutshell in what kind of shape our lagoon is? Say from 1 to 5. 5 being in a tremendous shape. That I can understand.
I'm going to give you about a 2 right now. On the north south, it's got a lot of sludge in it, lots of cattails. I was down there about a month ago, or not long after it was drained, maybe about beginning of June, and there's quite a bit of sludge in it. So Something's probably, we're gonna have to get in talks to start thinking about something to be done, because you're losing capacity with all the sludge in it right now.
So what's the
And
treatment for
from
that?
your experience, is there a lifespan like on a lagoon like this?
I
Can we
couldn't
say
put a number
we're
on
good
it.
for
Some
10
are,
years, we're good for 50?
some are 30, 40 years and nothing's been done to them.
Mhm.
Right now I'm at, I'll just tell you a little bit. I'm doing a project in Bruce Mines. They're at 27% sludge buildup in their lagoons right now. So we're doing a pilot project there for an enzyme treatment that kind of speeds the process up of getting rid of the sludge. If it works, it's quite a bit cheaper than dredging. Dredging, like if you have to dredge those lagoons, it's very expensive, because they have to dredge it into geotubes, like big bags, and then all the water runs out, and you let it dry, and then you have to haul it away to your landfill, and it could get, like I was up in a few $100,000 on Bruce Mines. So we're trying this pilot project. It's based on performance. So at the moment, so they'll pay what comes out of there on the enzyme treatment right now. So, and we're in about $150,000 range for that. So if it works, great.
Okay.
If not, the town isn't paying at this moment. So, but it is, I think we need to start talking about the lagoons a bit more seriously, just in the near future.
Any other questions?
Okay. I have a couple more, probably for Mark. That one complaint, when it's in this case almost proven that it's not our fault and it's the customer's fault in-house, do we charge for that?
No, no, we don't.
No, we don't?
No.
Okay, but I'm presuming with all the dumping, the sewer that we do charge for that though.
Yeah, the people that are connected to the system pay $375 additional over their
Yeah,
taxes
no,
for
I
the
mean
service.
the truckloads, the list we have appendix,
Yes.
what is it? E?
There's a contract that we have with the private contractor for the haulage of the sewage. That is something that this committee needs to review going into next year's budget to revise the costing.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
the other thing I'd like to mention is through Kevin is this is a time to have those discussions if there are any additional costs to be included within the budget requests coming up for 2022. So
Mhm.
certainly probably a discussion to have at our next meeting scheduled for November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else who would like to ask some questions? Dean,
Randy,
go ahead.
I'm kind of curious when I look at all the dumping of that was done in the lagoons and where a lot of it's coming from. And I guess I'm wondering how much of our costs on those lagoons are we recovering from the sewage that's being dumped in by the mobile sewage pickups?
That's the reason I want to bring it back to the committee to revise that contract and the fees to ensure that we're trying to recuperate the cost associated to it. I think they're too low at this point, but we'll be coming back with some recommendations for the committee to review.
And a lot of these places, I don't even recognize where it's coming from. How far away do we allow sewage to be brought into our lagoon? From how far away?
To my understanding, it's supposed to be sewage that's within our municipal jurisdictions.
Okay, Dean, do you have any more questions?
I think that's all. I'm just curious about that because it's amazing when you look at these, how many dumps there are made into that lagoon. And as I say, some of them appear to be from areas that I'm not familiar with. I don't, but I don't pretend to know every corner of our municipality either.
Really, Dean? You've been here so long, I think you would know them all.
Well, yeah, but our municipality is a lot bigger than it used to be.
True, true. Jen, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Brad?
Dean actually asked the question I was going to ask, so.
Well, if nobody else has any other questions, I have a few myself. The first is, do we have a dual rate for commercial waste because there's a higher volume of it coming in versus commercial waste that's brought to the lagoon by the contractor? Mark?
Sorry, I was muted. We have one contract with the contractor, and it's one rate. And as I mentioned, I think that rate's a little bit low and needs to be revised at this point in time.
Okay.
And for the committee's information, is a contract that was derived from a former CAO, which represents 15 households at this point. But my recommendation is going to go more towards the actual liters being put per liter fee rather than an example of 15 households.
Okay. Now for Kevin Speck, I have a few other questions. So the TSS, or the suspended solids you mentioned, that's not an excessive amount of solid waste suspended in the lagoon. It's picking up algae, you're saying?
Well, it's a mixture of all your sewage, and it's free floating solids in the water, and then they settle down.
Right.
So that when they do a sample, they measure how much of that free floating stuff is in the water. So, and that determines when we hit it with the ferric, that settles it right down, and then we can do the release. So.
Okay, because my other question was about the ferric acid. What is it trying to accomplish with that acid?
Yeah, it just gives it a faster settling, and then it's more clear water going over the weir when you release.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you have a pH out of balance, what do you use to control that?
There's not much we can do with it. If we just have to slow down the release or stop it for the time being till maybe just settles down a little bit more with the ferric, and then start to release again.
Okay. Another question I was going to ask you. So after we've completed the dumping of that lagoon, either one, do we go, say, a month later and check the river or the water system to see what the quality of that water is after it's been released and passed through the system?
No, we just do our samples when as it leaves, and that's the end of our sampling for it.
I wonder, just to confirm the viability in that water supply, that's all. What we were doing to maintain the environment beyond just our lagoon.
No.
My other question would be, our system compared to other municipalities of the same size, do we have excessive inflow, do you think? Or how is the system performing based on other?
It's not the worst I've seen.
Okay.
You can definitely tell when you're doing the monthly report that you can tell the days that it rains.
Right.
I was just doing Thessalon's yesterday, and theirs is quite high when it rains. It's almost double what yours is. So, but it's a little bit bigger town. But there is lots of factors, like you could have cracked cases on your manholes, or the frost has heaved them up and letting groundwater in too. So I think it's mostly infiltration from rain, and I don't know how many people are tied sump pump wise into your system. So that's another factor that goes to play, because everyone doesn't just go for a shower when it rains. So
and I would ask Mark Gagnon about, I heard at one point we had a huge problem with weeping tiles being tied into the system, and that we kind of went through and inspected everybody. Is that something that happened, or just hearsay?
If it did happen, it was before my time, Councillor Randy, or Chair, Mr. Chair. I do know that we did do a formal inspection of the whole system, video camera wise, have identified certain areas that needed some attention. Hence why we had submitted a formal grant requisition to the province for repairs and upgrades to the system. As of yet, that initial program was not accepted, and we're waiting for our next window or opportunity to submit a funding application, and we were hoping to do it in 2 stages, and to accomplish it 2 stages as per the report that was prepared by the consultant. We're looking between $4.5 and $5 million.
And the outflow is measured from each home, isn't it?
No,
No.
there's no measurement coming out.
There's no meters or measurements at the exit of the houses.
Okay. I know in some city systems, they do measure each house to see what the outputs are.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. Okay. That concludes my questions. If nobody else has any others for Kevin?
Sure.
Oh, Dean, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been just glancing through the lists of the sewage dumps that were made in by our private sewage haulers, and I noticed people coming from as far away as Henvey Inlet and over in West Nipissing and so forth. And I think we should take a real good look at what we're going to allow in, or at least if we're going to allow sewage to come in from out of the municipality, that we should have a different rate that we charge for that, because sooner or later, as we've just heard tonight, we're going to have to address the problems that this is causing, the amount of sewage that's being dumped in but from the haulers, and it's going to be costly when we do it. And I don't think that the taxpayers in the municipality should pick up all the costs when a lot of sewage appears to be coming from out of the municipality. And I think that as a committee, or that at some point we should take a good look at what we're doing with this. And I would be interested in any opinions from anyone else on that, because there's a lot of it coming in as you go through page after page here.
Through you, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, those are great points, Councillor Dean, and those are all part of the discussions that we'll have when we review the contract with the committee. We're at that point now and getting ourselves ready for the 2022 budget, and those are all issues in terms of costing, in terms of where the septage is coming from, and ensure that it's within the specified contract.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else have any more to add to this discussion?
I'm going to make just one more comment, and I hope you'll pardon me for this, Mr. Chair, but
certainly
I noted, as I'm sure we all did, the great detail that came with the report from our contractor who looks after our system. And I would suggest in the future that when we have him attend one of these meetings of ours, that he bring to us issues. Not just point out what's happening, but give us any issues to deal with. Because otherwise, maybe I'm the only one, but a lot of that is way past what I'm understanding or want to understand. But I am concerned about any issues that the contractor, that our people who are looking after those lagoons have, that we should be addressing. Those are the kind of things I like to deal with.
Okay.
Thanks, Dean. And I think we saw that he mentioned 2 or 3 issues, but no concrete plans to address them. So
No.
I agree. It would be nice to see exactly what the next steps will be.
We may have to be involved in those issues too.
Mark, is it something that in the future we can have him come back and see his exact plans?
Actually, usually Kevin is very good at submitting requests for capital improvements to the system, of which we have on file. And as council is aware, last year there was a substantial amount of money put aside to do repairs based on the recommendations that were brought forth from the Aqua representatives. We will continue to do that. I'm interested in finding out solutions in terms of the north cell that Kevin has spoke of tonight, and bring that back for further discussion and direction and potential budget recommendations going forth.
Thanks,
I
Mark.
just add one thing. I've only been the manager for about a year, but I've gotten my hands in here, and now last year I wasn't really aware of what capital wise was going, but now looking at the lagoons, I think it's more of a priority over some other stuff. But I do want to start building a case on the lagoon and see what the capacity is and start building that information up in the database. So I was talking to our business manager, Ted, today. We're going to start getting that information together so we can present a case to you what needs to be done. So
Excellent. Thank you.
okay.
Be interested to see how the enzyme treatment works out up north.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. It seems to be working good, but the thing with it is I can't see the results till the spring. They have to come back and sonar it, so then it'll tell me. So it's a 3-year process.
Okay.
But I hope it works. If it does, it might be an option for you guys too. So
Okay. Excellent. Well, seeing no other questions on this topic, Kevin, thank you for your time today and coming and speaking to our committee.
you're very welcome. Anytime.
Absolutely. I think we're going to move along to item 4.2, which is the update on the transfer site modifications and the closure of Highway 528 site. Kevin Benvenuti is going to speak to that for us, please.
Thank you. Good night. Or I hope everyone's having a good night tonight. So through you, Mr. Chair, we're just going to run through a quick update. And then we have several questions that Councillor Millette brought through to us. So we're going to read them off and go through. That's going to give us a pretty good show where we're at with everything. So as of September 7th, the bins were removed at Highway 528. Entrances were blocked with soil as per the MTO's recommendation. There's been no waste left or deposited since it's been closed, so that's a good sign. Public Works transfer site was closed on September 13th on the Saturday at 5:30 until Wednesday, and the fencing and the gate was completed this Monday. We're just waiting on the cameras to be able to be viewed off-site. Other than that, everything is good to go for that site. And we're just going to run through some of the questions that Councillor Millette brought forward to us. So he asked, have we monitored the landfill site traffic and the amount of materials received in this period? All of our traffic coming in the landfill site is always monitored, and we do track the vehicle types coming in. We've seen an uptick of about 5 vehicles roughly per day that the waste transfer site and when the Noelleville site is closed. So nothing extraordinary coming in extra. So next question, have we seen less garbage left at the bin sites or left out on the ground outside the sites? Talking to Public Works, they mainly go around and clean up the sites, and they said there's been no change for garbage being left outside of the bins. Are we still picking up large items, couches, chairs, barbecues at the bin sites, less or more than previous? There's, according to Public Works, same amount of bulky items being picked up at the transfer sites, except for Noelleville, because it is fenced off now. Have we given out many fines or collected them? We're roughly at about, bylaws laid about 27 charges since the beginning of August. So next question, are the fines due to illegal dumping or of residents or non-residents? Majority of the fines we have gotten they're all non-residents for the majority of them, and most of them have been issued at Noelleville site. Just seems to be that people leaving West Nipissing and Dokeese area tend to drive through there. They're so close to the road, so that seems to be the one that non-residents hit as they go through. So have we had garbage left in non-bin areas due to people not wanting to travel to the landfill site? We haven't seen any waste outside of the transfer sites being dumped since we've closed these sites, so that's good. Have we had many complaints on closures and the few hours of bin service? There have been no formal complaints like put forward to us. We've had and some people just verbally complaining at the gate at the landfill site, but nothing formal, and it's just nothing we can really take into account. So next question, are cameras all operational and are planning to get more working at the sites? The cameras at Public Works, like I said, are up and running. We're just waiting for them to be the IT, we're having some issues with being able to view them off-site. So, but we can go through and review the footage on-site. We do have 2 cameras we've been running at the Noelleville bin sites. So, and we are installing 2 more at Shaw Road, hopefully this week or beginning of next week.
Really? Well,
That should help with that.
can I ask a question? So Shaw Road being there's no electricity there. So is this like how are you running these?
So this is the same thing we're running in Noelleville, and they're game cameras pretty much.
Oh, okay.
So they're just set in a way that we can get the license plate. They are not perfect, but they do help. So
What if somebody steals the game cameras, which was high probability of happening?
yeah, we do have them locked up in steel cases, and
Okay.
and they are locked to the poles. So
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks.
if somebody really wanted to get them, but hopefully, like, we could get them. I think they're pretty solid. They're pretty good. They're locked in. They're pretty tight. So.
Good. Thanks.
So next question is, how do we better monitor sites to Shaw Road? We are installing 2 cameras. And then, have we thought about erecting a bigger sign on Highway 64 by Hoole Road to indicate the direction of the dump or landfill? Public Works is already in the process of that. So we're just waiting for MTO permission to erect signs at Hoole Road and Highway 64 and Highway 528 in Montgomery. So I guess we're just waiting to get approval on that. Have we thought about erecting a very clear sign indicating dollars of fines that may be imposed at every site? Excuse me. For the set amount of money being fined has not been discussed so far, but due to the waste management bylaw being reviewed, we'd like to wait until we know what the set fines will be for everything. And there already is a lot of information when you pull into those sites. There's, all the recycling information. We have a billboard up. We have no trespassing signs. So we have cameras. There's a lot of information being thrown at you when you pull in. So I don't know if that would help, but it's something we can discuss for sure. Have we thought about a set timeline to review the changes and ask us to discuss success or not? We're looking at 1 year. Will give us enough data to review the change of Public Works waste transfer site to see if it's successful in what we've done. Last question, and finally, how will you rate success? The intent of the changes wasn't to save money, but to be more efficient and effective. So what elements do we gauge success on? Success will be measured by proper use of the site. So no bulk waste dumping, and also recycling contamination rate would be improved. I think that would be a good rate of success. And that's all the questions that Councillor Millette put forward.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions about the waste management sites?
Yes, Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead, Bob. Yep, go ahead, Bob.
It's more of a comment. The Noelleville transfer site, our Public Works did a great job installing those bins back there, and right now it looks very clean. And just one thing I noticed, the 2 rows of bins are a little close, that once you drive, another vehicle can't really meet you. So it's a little narrow for 2 vehicles. But besides that, everything looks great there. They did a great job.
Go
Through you, Mr. Chair. Can I speak on that? So it was actually designed that way. We don't want 2 vehicles. People tend to block each other, so we have the license plate cameras set up. That way, we always get the footage. I know people may have to wait or for the person in front of you, but it shouldn't take that long to throw out a bag of garbage and recycling. So there's enough bins that you can park a couple vehicles along it. But yeah, we don't want people blocking each other, because then our camera footage is useless. So that's what we run into now.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Does anybody else have any questions? Well, from myself, Kevin, I would like to say or ask about the Alvin site. I know last Monday it was horribly overrun, bags everywhere, large items left. Riley had been doing a really great job in previous weeks of controlling that mess and flow. And I heard a lot of feedback from people that they were aware that the bylaw officer was there and that things looked really, really clean. And then all of a sudden we hit the weekend and there was this massive dump that happened. And I was just wondering, was Riley out on the weekends? Does he come in on Saturdays and check, or is it completely just Monday to Friday at this point? I guess Mark would be more better to.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. No, we have, I have his schedule scattered, and there's always weekends. So
Okay.
I was there that weekend. It's just, it's one person. I come in as well on long weekends, but we can only be, there's two of us, so we can only be so many places at once. And
Yeah.
Alvin's site is not laid out the way the Noelleville site is, so cameras do not catch. And we did the cameras in Noelleville that were installed are much better than the ones in Alvin. So it's a lot harder to review that footage.
Certainly. Yeah, because we really got hit on the past week. Martin, go ahead.
Also, just on that topic, the Public Works Department stopped doing Saturday pickups as of the long weekend in September. So it's been 2 weekends since let me get that right. Yeah, 2 weekends. So we do see more garbage because our guys aren't picking it up every Saturday.
Okay, so that explains the extra probably capacity there, and then people were just lazy to go look for empty bins, I guess is probably what happened there. Okay. When are we planning on doing the fencing in Alvin? I know it was also part of our sort of grand plan here to control the Alvin site at some point. Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are looking at pricing for all the sites to be fenced. So we are just getting all the sizing and what it's going to take really to do that. So we'll be bringing it to you soon.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else have any more questions on this topic?
Actually, just one quick one, if I could, Kevin. You had mentioned that fines have been levied, more or less. Has money's been collected from those fines, or are people just being delinquent? Are they ignoring them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we the court system's really backed up. We have been getting notices that they will be going in, but the court system is months behind. So before we see any sort of money come in, I don't know how long it'll be. So the POA courts are just backed way up. So
completely understood. On a separate issue, I am under the same sort of problem.
So to you, Kevin, nobody has voluntarily paid their fine then? We've had 100% offer to fight it in court?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we've only had one, I believe one now that is actually, we've got notice that they will be fighting it. Other than that, I believe that they will have to have paid. So I don't know when the POA court will actually send us checks or if they will, because we do got to pay towards that service. So
if I may, Mr. Chair, just for education purposes, as everybody keeps mentioning the Provincial Offences Act, quorum of many municipalities throughout northeastern Ontario, going all the way down to Callander, Mattawa, East Ferris, North Bay, West Nipissing, Marks Bay, St. Charles, and ourselves. So when people do receive their fines and pay voluntarily, they pay it to the city of North Bay. Then those revenues are taken to offset the expenses of the court system. For the committee's information, last year it actually cost the municipality money to operate the system in the neighborhood of about $5,000. In the past, we used to collect $7,000 to $8,000 in revenues, but has slowly dissipated. So just a quick education on how the fines work, and that not necessarily paid at the municipality or kept by the municipality. Although we are looking at a different way of operating in terms of administrative fines, which we are slowly starting to look at and implement, of which we would keep the fines at that point, although they're a lot less.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Dean, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two comments. One is the lessening of the availability of the Noelleville transfer site was a pilot project. You'll recall we wanted to see what the reaction would be of people in the community when they would have to go to the landfill if they had garbage, as opposed to using those sites. And I'm kind of curious at what the reactions have been. Have we been getting a lot of complaints? Are there any really written or official complaints? Are people upset about having to go to the landfill instead of having the bins available? In other words, are we accomplishing what we set out to do, which was to see whether or not we could eventually close the Noelleville site completely, as per the recommendation by our the people who did our research on all this. And so that's one thing. And the other question that I'll leave at that one and see, maybe Kevin might answer to that, or Mark might have a comment to make about that. So
Mark was going to go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead first on behalf of Kevin. Kevin, you can jump in. It's only been closed a week now, so it's a little bit difficult to monitor it at this point or retrieve data. People need to understand that although we're closing the sites for 4 days, they still remain open for 3. So it's just a matter of adjusting your visits. So you can either adjust them to go to the landfill when the landfill is open, or wait until the bins are open Saturday night once the landfill closes, and are open until Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. In terms of written complaints, I haven't seen any being submitted at the office at this point in time. We have received some calls at the main office, and I know Kevin has fielded some calls as well, and just trying to explain the process and the whys behind it. But again, they've only been switched over as of September 13th. That's approximately a week now, so it's still early in the process at this point in time. Unless Kevin, you had anything else to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, that's it. We just have people that are a little confused with it right now, and if they're adjusting, they will. It seems to be fine so far. So.
I'm kind of sorry. I thought it had been operating on this basis for much longer than just a week. I guess we haven't had enough time to really gauge public reaction at this point. The other comment or question, either one, I noticed when I was in our municipal office the other day that the recycling poster that we have there is quite different in what it says we can recycle than the one I have hanging up in my office. And I'm kind of wondering whether we keep changing this, or whether there are updates to this recycling poster and what we can accept as for proper recycling. And I also wonder, how do we make those posters available to the public easily? I mean, how does the public have to ask for them, or are they available at certain sites in the municipality? I mean, I think it's important that more of our public be able to be sure they have an up-to-date poster on what is acceptable for recycling purposes.
Kevin, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We mailed these out to every taxpayer in the spring. And they are available at the main office and at the landfill site. We hand them out. So they're the most up to date of what we are allowed to recycle with our current contractor. That's why we did the big mail out when we did have items that did change, that we were not recyclable anymore. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I personally didn't receive one in the mail. I know that. And I didn't know they were available at the landfill. I will, next time I'm by there, I'll stop there. But there's no sign anywhere that says, if you need a new poster or up to date on recycling, come in the office and get it. And perhaps it would be a good idea to do that, because I suspect that an awful lot of people in the municipality are just as dumb as I am and don't have one of these up to date posters. And I think we ought to I mean, we're talking all the time about the recycling being polluted because the wrong stuff was in it and then it can't go. And I think it's very important that everybody be really aware what's up to date in terms of acceptable recycling. And so we should make a little bit more of an effort to make sure that this is easily available and that people know it.
If I may, Mr. Chair, and Kevin, you can confirm this, we also mailed out the fridge magnets, didn't we?
I didn't get any of them.
We mailed out to all residents, fridge
Yeah.
magnet, poster to everyone. So
Okay. Thank you, Kevin and Dean. Anybody else have any comments? Richard?
Yep. I just thanks. I just want to go back on the fines from a few minutes ago. So I understand that some of these fines, by the time they come back to us, we might not be getting the fines that we're anticipating in revenues. But the intent of the fines isn't meant to be revenue generated. But I mean, of course, it's paying for the extra cost and monitoring that we're doing. But my question is that I know that we had a discussion there at some point in the last week or so with regards to a system that we can implement in-house, correct? And so how efficient? No, maybe that's not the question. So how hard is that to implement? And that would probably we'd probably be able to generate more revenues that way, and not seeing this getting a bill instead of a revenue. I guess the reason behind this whole thing is that if we're going to be issuing fines and we're not going to be collecting it, then what's the use? I mean, it won't take very long for people to understand that they can do what they want and fines aren't going to be levied or they can be imposed, but they don't have to pay them. But anyway, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Once they're issued, those are provincial offensive fines. They have to pay them, or either go to court to challenge them. And there's processes in place through the Provincial Offences Act if those tickets are not paid. So I'll leave it at that. We administratively are working with bylaw officials, Andrea, Kevin, and also with our clerk in terms of looking at bringing in the system that you're speaking of, which is the administrative fine process. I don't know if I have the exact wording correct, Kevin, or not, but we are in the process of looking at those and implementing those going forward.
And if I can just add to that question, so if we were to do that, it still has the same legal binding as what we're doing now?
To give you the technical background to it, Richard, without having the information in front of me, a little bit more difficult, but certainly we can certainly look at it and report back once we're ready to do so.
Okay, thanks.
Kevin, you had a comment?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, the system's called AMPS. It's a administrative monetary penalty system. A lot of municipalities are moving towards it, but as far as I know, it has to be a resident. So these non-residents, we will still work off the POA, set funds. So for residents, the AMPS system we will be able to use, but non-residents is still going to go through provincial offenses court system.
So I'm assuming for a resident, if it's not paid, it could be added to the tax levy.
Exactly. That is the point of it. So you can always collect that revenue. There is recourse. Whereas if it's the Provincial Offences Act, then they will go. You won't be able to renew your license plates and other sorts of things. That's how they collect that. So
okay, thanks.
Does anybody else have anything to add to this item further? Seeing none, we're going to move along to item 4.3, the project update of the environmental assessment of the Noelleville landfill site. Please, back to you, Kevin.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no update for this. We are waiting for EXP they're a couple weeks behind. They had to do some revisions, so we're still just waiting for that.
So nothing to table on that item. Okay, perfect. So then we'll move on to 4.4, which is the roundtable discussion. If any members of the committee have something they'd like to discuss this evening, this is the chance.
There's nothing for me because both Kevin and Mark have done a great job of laying out things as they've been doing these various initiatives, and they've answered all of my questions now. You know, in terms of coming into this meeting, there's a couple of things in the back of my mind rattling around about the closure of the Noelleville site and the dump and the other sites as well, and they've answered them very well. So thanks, guys. Good job.
Excellent. Thank you, Brad. Does anybody have any thoughts further beyond our tonight's discussions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Bob, please.
Yes, just a comment. Having spoken to neighbors and friends and, you know, about the transfer sites and garbage, and I was in a way surprised. I had no negative comments. People are saying we were seeing a problem and you guys are addressing him, and my comment is always, well, we're trying something. It might not be 100% the real McCoy, but we're trying something, and if there's changes to be made or better ways of doing it, we'll be doing it. But at least we're trying something. We're getting data on a new system, and I think it's great. And people that I've spoken to believe that. Thank you.
Great, Bob. Thanks. Go ahead, Richard.
Maybe I just want to piggyback on what just Bob was saying. I mean, there's obviously lots of chatter on the social media with regards to this, but to say that it's all negative, it's not. There's been actually some support, a lot of support of people, you know, applauding the fact that we're trying something and we're just not letting things go. But I mean, I think only time will tell. I mean, you know, although we've implemented it, it doesn't necessarily implemented changes doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the, you know, the perfect solution. But I mean, at least we're trying, and I think a lot of people have realized that. But there will be a time of adjustment. I mean, there will be people who is wondering, you know, how come you can't bring it here now, and how come the bins are gone, or how come you can't have access to it. So, you know, I mean, emphasizing communicating with the people as much as we can and letting them know is definitely you know, a step in the right direction. So.
Great, thanks, Richard. Anybody else want to add? Oh, go ahead, Dean. Or, sorry, Jen, I'll get you next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lost my train of thought here, but another issue that we were looking to kind of address was the possibility of picking up recycling in our two little urban areas, if you'll pardon the expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered, are we making progress on that? Have we been investigating what the likelihood is of finding someone to do that, and any cost to it? And I guess perhaps it's probably best addressed to Mark on that, but and I'm not suggesting that it has to be done immediately, but I know that that's one of the recommendations that came from the committee in the past.
And I think Dean wrote for tender on that process, but I'll throw it to Kevin to answer the question he's asked.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we are actually, myself and Michelle are doing the RFP for it right now.
Okay.
So it should be ready to go out in the next week or two. And then we'll have implementation. We're still looking at our projected at 8, when we said 8 months. So it's still, we're looking roughly a February start. We're looking just to make sure that we can get appropriate blue boxes and everything else. There's a lot that goes to this. So it will be released in a week or so, a week or two. So we're working on it right now.
Good, good.
Excellent.
I think it's important that we do proceed with this in a reasonable time length, because if there's any feasibility or probability to picking up recycling and improving the recycling process, it's the only way we're going to find out. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. And Jen, next.
Dean stole my question.
Sorry.
There you go, Dean.
That's okay. It was a good question.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Jen?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, I don't see anybody else with any more items here, other than I'm going to just touch on one briefly. More and more, as an environmental committee, we're taking on some great environmental issues, and one that I think is important that we should start to look forward to is perhaps issues with water quality. We're a tourist area with lots of water bodies. And recently we heard from the Trout Lake Association that their dissolved oxygen levels in their lake are way, way below acceptable levels for the fish. And also as we heard tonight, or I touched on, was the outflows into Wolf Creek, I guess that is, where they discharge. And I wonder if we could re-engage with what was the name of our environmental body there that was doing the testing in the French River, that had the fisheries? Mark, help me.
Stuart.
Are you talking about
Is
the
it, are you
stewardship?
talking about the Stewardship Council?
Yes, the Stewardship Council. I wonder if we could, because they seem to have been dormant lately, and I wonder if we should engage with the Stewardship Council.
I think through you, Mr. Chair, I think Brad is part of that group, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, excellent. Then we're even talking to the right people, Brad.
That's right. That's why I'm holding my hand up.
Sorry, I was looking at the
His
wrong
hand is
screen.
up.
Yep.
Go ahead, Brad. I wonder if we
Well-
can have some discussions.
Well, the thing that we do, we're part of the Ontario Lake Partner Program, and water is sampled on average about once a month, except of course for the last 2 years. Extraordinary circumstances had prevailed, so we started back up in the spring, later in the spring, early summer kind of a thing. But we're not measuring a lot of things. It's really total phosphorus that we're most interested in. And suspended solids. And that's the sort of information that gets measured. MNR through the Dorset area puts out an annual report, and I can certainly send you along a copy of that, Randy. There's no problem. With a little bit of explanation, and I can show you maps where all of our sample locations are. So we pretty well covered the watershed. I mean, this was set up about 10 years ago. And I'm relatively new to the committee. And it was Joe, and forgive me if I pronounce his last name wrong, but Diplome, you know him. You and I met him at his house, actually.
Yeah.
And he had established that water sampling program.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just, like I said, I hear of a concern recently of the Trout Lake water quality issues, and there's other lakes, and just wondering, whether it's something we should be looking at as a committee to further our depth and our reach, and to have maybe a representative plus yourself, we can discuss things and maybe look at what options are available as a municipality to move forward on water quality.
Certainly, I can take that forward to the group and see what they say about that. And certainly I can follow up with my provincial counterparts as well and ask them if this was ever considered, or is it ongoing in another form. So I can certainly let you know at our next meeting.
Oh, excellent. And while I have you, Brad, you probably would know about the fishery that was in the high school.
Yep.
Where's our status on that? Because we haven't developed, I think, anything out of there in a while, and somebody was asking me.
Ongoing. I have been, it's my fault. I fully admit this. I've been delinquent. I'm the communications guy. I have not been putting out an awful lot of information over the last little while, just because of what's been happening in my life. Nothing bad, just too busy on things, trying to get things completed around home and taking care of business in other forums. But there was at least one set of lake trout released into the overall French River community watershed. Mm-hmm. I forget exactly where this happened, but it's still ongoing, and the high school is still very keen on doing this, and they've set up an atrium, and they've moved the the fishery into that atrium. And what they're eventually going to try to do is put a webcam on it so that people can dial into it 24/7 and just see what's going on. It's actually a really neat process.
It is. And when was that release done, Brad?
The exact date I don't have at hand, but it would have been early in the year, February, March-ish.
So we did get a turnout this year then, at least.
Yeah, and we're also looking for other sources of fish eggs, not just the MNR, but we're also talking to Dokees, the reserve, because they collect the fish eggs as well. So we're in discussions with them.
Oh, excellent. Very good. Well, that's great. Does anybody else have any more discussions for our roundtable? Well, having seen none, it's been a really great meeting. It's nice seeing everybody again. Can't wait till we can do this in person, although it won't be too long, I hope. Council has started back up in person, so hopefully in the nearest enough future before Christmas, maybe we can all meet together in person. It would be really nice to actually see you rather than flip through all the screens. But so we're going to move along to 5.1, the resolution to adjourn. I'm going to need a mover and a seconder.
You got it.
Bob's moving. I need a seconder, please.
Leafs and a Habs fan.
I think we got it then, don't we? Who was the seconder? Richard?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, everybody. Thank you for coming out this evening and meeting. Michelle, you were going to say something?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't believe that a member of the public can adjourn the meeting. I think it has to be in a.
No,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
right.
I thought Richard was. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm not here officially. You're right.
Right. Sorry, Richard. So we need somebody else.
Good catch.
Second.
Okay. That'll suffice.
just before we go, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, do we have a date for our next meeting or?
No, Michelle and I usually discuss it beforehand and then we send it out. Did you have a preferred date? I know hunting season's coming and you don't want to miss it.
Don't forget moose, don't forget deer season. The first 2 weeks of November are out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the input. We'll certainly.
Okay,
keep
good
that in mind.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks very much, Randy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.